Should I look at the camera? I
You
don't know
should.
what I look like.
I don't know what you look like either. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Laser Source podcast. I guess it's a special episode of the Laser Source podcast, the number one podcast if you like balloon cats. Look at this balloon cat re-entry. It's pretty good.
The best balloon cat.
Bam.
It's pretty good. But we are having kind of a special episode today. Today we are releasing the kind of early beta of the UV parameter library, which is something that everybody has been asking for a really long time, and we had to kind of just ship it. I don't think any of us are super duper happy with it, but the UV is a weird laser. If you guys don't already know that, it's a lot different than the fiber and the CO2 and the CO2 galvo. There are a lot of things that make it unique. There are a lot of unique sources that behave very differently from one another, and Kyle, I'm sure, is going to talk about that a little bit later on. We can do some demos today. I do plan on asking or answering. Wow, you're going to have to edit the shit out of this. I do plan on answering some questions. If you guys have some, just leave them in the chat. We'll start them as we go along. There are a lot of little kind of nitpicky things that I want to cover in this episode so that we can use it as a reference going forward, because people that try to use this library, which is going to be a lot of you, I'm sure, you're going to have some challenges that come along with using this kind of library. So I want to try to answer as many of those questions up front now so that we can look back on this as we do. So, or as we need to. So that's kind of where we're at. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day.
It is. And this is the first time that I think Kyle and I have worked completely separately on a library, which has been kind of weird. Typically, we bounce things back and forth between each other to verify, and we've not been able to do that pretty much at all for one big reason. And what is that reason, Kyle?
You have an Inngu and I have a JPT, and the thing about UVs is every source model kind of has a function with its pulse width, whether it's reversed or not reversed. So yours makes sense where your pulse width, the higher the value, means more power, right?
Yeah.
That would be typical for like a fiber, or in this case, your UV. Whereas with my UV, the JPT 5 watt, as a lot of people in the community might know, since it's a pretty popular source.
Yeah.
It's reversed from that. So one pulse width, it's like one is number one kind of thing, where it has the most power. So and then stupid. going higher from that, away from one, is reduced power, or reduced pulse width duration, I should say. It's not really reduced power. There is no power percent, but
yep.
I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So that leading that into the next piece, right? So when we're looking at other sources that we don't have, where we, with a fiber, could extrapolate that information and help do a conversion library for other sources, it's not quite that simple, because every source has its functional pulse width range and frequency peak power output. And that means a lot, considering we don't have a power slider to adjust alternative to that, like we do with the fiber.
Right. So in simple terms, not only is the pulse width backwards on my machine, but even if they weren't backwards, let's say they are exactly the same, my JPTs or my Inngu's, 20 frequency at 20 nanosecond pulse width is not your 20 frequency 20-second pulse width. They are not the same thing.
No.
And so even if we didn't have the added layer of confusion of like the backwardsness of the pulse width, we now have to deal with the fact that our values don't even mean the same amount of power output. I really think it comes down to duty cycle. I don't want to get too technical on today's show, and I think there is a way to kind of rectify or reconcile that, but I don't know what it is yet. And it's something that's going to take a lot more time. So we've definitely done some strategic thinking to put these libraries together to try to pad that out. Luckily, we do have the two most major of the UV sources, the Inngu and the JPT. So we were able to independently test and verify the vast majority of the parameters on this library without needing the other person. You'll see there are, I think it came down to 3. Is it like
I had a list somewhere.
You had a list
There's
somewhere.
like a couple plastics.
Yeah, there are like 3 settings Kyle has that we don't, just because we didn't have the material on hand. And again, you can't just like copy it over and flip the pulse with it. It doesn't work that way. So for the most part, the libraries have reached like some level of purity, which is really what we were waiting for in order to release this. The other thing that's pretty weird is we are basically ignoring lenses this time around. So normally when you download a library from Laser Everything, you would download the entire library. That includes every light burn cut library for every wattage at every lens or every field size. And we're not doing that this time. And the reason for that is because in the extensive testing that I did, and I'm talking like weeks worth of testing, from 110 to 300 millimeter field sizes, the difference in the spot size was less than like 1,000th of a millimeter, or even 100th of a millimeter if I want to be a little generous. And so that basically led us to believe that there isn't a huge impact on lens size, not nearly as much as you'd see on something like a CO2, and not even as much as you would see on the fiber. So for that reason, we've kind of left lens sizes out of the equation here. So that's good for you guys. That means that basically you can use just about any setting with any of your lenses for your UV library, and you're going to have some amount of luck. I'm not saying that there's zero compensation that needs to happen, but
if you go with a 300 lens and you're trying to mark glass, you're going to have a hard time. But just about anything else is probably going to be okay.
Yep.
And it will need a little adjustment if you go real big on the lens. But if you're staying in the mid to low range within a fairly large margin, you're probably going to be okay.
You're probably going to be okay, especially with common materials that you're going to be working with on a UV laser, organics, big time. You're really not going to see any difference at all. So when you're doing things like wood, and even on plastics, you're already spreading out your line distance on plastics to the point where your spot size isn't really going to come into play, even if it was changing radically, but it isn't. The only major warning I would probably give is if you're doing photos, make sure that you're going through your due diligence to adjust your spot size, or your interval, rather. Make sure you're doing your due diligence to adjust your interval to make sure that you're still getting quality photos. But that's a photo problem, not a UV laser problem. So we're not going to harp on it too long today.
Yep.
Let's see. How are we doing in chat so far? Because I've not started anything. How many lasers? Market.
We got a couple questions. Yeah.
I'm just gonna star through these really quick.
All the questions, Bronson. Ask them all.
Ask them all, dude.
If you got UV ones specifically, that would be ideal. But
Indeed. Also, now might be a good time to mention, since this is going on the podcast, so that people can listen to it. Obviously, it'll be kind of abridged, because if we do anything particularly visual today, it'll probably be cut out of the final cut, but this will go on the podcast. So it would behoove me to mention our podcast sponsor, Johnson Plastics Plus. Woo! Thanks, Johnson Plastics Plus, for sponsoring the Laser Source podcast. We love you guys. We have a whole pile of stuff. In fact, nope, that's the UV testing stuff. But
We
right
did
over
use
here.
some of
It's
it.
like just off camera. You guys can't see it. There's a massive pile of stuff that we just got from them. Rhiannon started shooting the video for the ultimate bamboo engraving guide, which is going well so far.
Yeah.
And you can find a link down to their store and all of their goodies, plus a coupon code for 15% off almost everything in the store down in the description. The code is YLRZDF. And of course, if that changes, we'll have it down in the description for you. Make sure you check them out. It helps support the channel at no additional cost to you. And they really do sell quality products over there. So thanks one last time to Johnson Plastics Plus for making today's stream possible.
We also used a lot of their materials to test the UV.
We
So,
did. Yeah, just
yeah.
because we kind of had it out.
Yeah, on
So
the
it was
Inngu
like there.
list, some of the JPPlus like woods and things are listed.
Mm-hmm. One of the nice things about testing with that stuff too is I feel like it's pretty middle of the road as far as like just consistency and
Yeah.
like it's not even consistency. It's like they sell very plain generic stuff.
Right.
Which sounds bad, but isn't. It's like very consistent.
It's really good when you want something that's consistent for job output, or if you're doing a lot of bulk orders.
Yeah. There's no
Huge for
surprises.
that.
Yeah. So it was really great for kind of getting an edge on this because this is something we've been wanting to do for a long time. And I'm just starring questions as we go here. The other... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Anthony's using his UV right now, and he loves this thing.
Oh,
which
wow.
leads me into right after that, what UV should I buy? And wait, Anthony, what UV do you have again? Anthony has the same UV that I have, and also Matt has, and that is the Haoshin 5-watt JPT. I believe we all have a 150 lens, but you can get a variety of lenses. It's kind of irrelevant. But primarily the source is kind of the deciding factor on what experience you have and how it interacts with everything.
Yeah.
Like in Alex's case, he has a 5-watt Inngu that they got from Maxtron. I have a 5-watt JPT from Haoshin. So there you go.
What is Anthony rocking? Does he have
JPT.
5 watts too? Is it a 5? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We all have the 5-watt Lark.
Yeah, the Lark
model. Yep.
Yeah, there's no 10 watts in our immediate circle, which is one of the other things that I wanted to talk about. So something you guys should be aware of is if you have a 10 watt UV laser, there are I think I have some tactics in my head for adjusting this library for your use, but they have proven to be inconsistent so far. This might be a better topic for you, Kyle, because you have more experience with it than I do as far as, translating to 10 watts. You could half or double the speed, right? That would probably be the first way to go before even messing with pulse width and frequency.
The biggest thing you get, so assuming all things are equal, right? Which they aren't, but if you take your settings from a 5-watt and go to an equivalent 10-watt, you would think essentially doubling the speed would work because you don't really have a power slider. And if the pulse width and frequency power curves are the same, then it should work beautifully. The problem with that is when you switch between models, the power curve changes. That's kind of like going from like a 4-cylinder 1,000 horsepower engine to a V8 1,000 horsepower engine. And like if one has a turbo and a supercharger, the power curves are going to look all kinds of different for you car guys, right? So
I know car stuff.
I know nothing.
Like a supercharged V8 versus a turbocharged 4-cylinder, if they both put out the same amount of horsepower, they're going to have different torque curves and power curves. But anyways, different topic. The point is if all things are equal, yes, doubling the speed would help. And that's actually the primary reason why you would go with a higher wattage is your output is going to be significantly faster. But for number 2 is actually you can push the focal range a little bit more. But with a UV, I mean, it's already really small. So percentage wise, you're gaining a lot, but realistically you're not gaining too much.
Yeah.
And you're probably not going to notice a lot of that unless you're doing like project mark stuff.
My brain goes right to speed because I feel like because the libraries are built independently for independent sources, the speed is really the only consistent factor between every machine. So if you're doubling the wattage, doubling the speed is the only thing you can really change without like flying off course really fast, unless you're making like super small adjustments, you know.
Yeah.
Speed's universal, so it's kind of what I'm hoping for anyway. So one thing that I did want to ask you guys is for feedback, especially with the community UV library, which is down at the moment. That's something I can talk about before the show's over tonight. I'm overhauling some of our back-end systems, so it's not even up right now. But if you find that you found a just equivalent for 10 watts for an existing setting in the 5-watt library, submitting that to us somehow so that we can pad out those 10-watt libraries and keep that curated and organized would be really great. Not just for us, obviously, but for anyone that wanted to utilize that library in the future. So I do ask that you guys submit those if you have the time. But yeah, it is. We do need help. We do need help from the community because it is kind of random. There were a couple settings that you did where you like copied Kyle's setting. Did you even invert the pulse width on those?
Yeah, I did.
You did invert the pulse width?
Yeah.
But it was
That
still
was
like,
for, like, the plastics.
just happened to work. Like it worked fine. But then other ones like wouldn't. And yeah, so it's super
I
random.
think some of the wood was different.
Yep. Yeah, we used the I don't know where you got all your wood settings, Kyle. We used the Ukuch sample pack stack.
I think it was
Is that what you
same.
went through too?
Yep.
Yeah, man, that works super good. That works super good.
Yep,
Do you
here.
have in your library with the JPT, do you have a cut setting?
No. That's one thing that I plan on doing down the road. I'm still kind of fine tuning my process
Did
on
a
that.
couple.
But
We did a few. We can cut wood real good, but for some reason, even though I feel like one of the first things I ever did with my UV was cut glass. Now I can't seem to do it without fracturing my glass, and I don't know
that
what
could just be
changed.
the glass.
It could be, yeah. It is
thin
like
glass.
a really shitty, cheap, thin picture frame, but it definitely like has come near to exploding a few times. So
I also had a hard time with the clear acrylic.
yeah, clear acrylic too. We were doing cast acrylic, and I was having like no luck with cast acrylic when we were trying to get settings together.
kept
Do you have
melting.
acrylic settings in yours?
I do not, because I don't have any acrylic on hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I
keep
haven't
waiting
done
on that
acrylic
too.
in so long that I just don't have any.
You
But
were getting close, I feel like,
Frozen
before we
glass.
gave up and moved on because we had
I
other
don't know.
things
It's
to do.
behind you. There's some in the middle. It's the one sticking out under all the
Oh,
bamboo.
gross. Yeah.
But most of it was just kind of melty, or it was just going through to the masking paper below it or the beds. It was just a bunch of material tests.
No, it's never going to focus with me sitting here. Hold on.
usually when I have issues with it flowing through to the backing or the other side, sometimes that means that I'm too out of focus.
I did try defocusing it at one point. I don't know.
It can
Might
just be
just need
weird
more
sometimes,
testing.
too.
Yeah.
I wonder if extruded would do better. Like everybody goes after cast with the CO2, but like I'm wondering like how would extruded behave with a UV, and would it be different? Because this isn't really behaving the way I expected it to, at the very least.
That brings us into the conversation of there's a wavelength for everything, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Every laser has its good spots.
You can't do it all.
Yeah. Will is asking, how many UV lasers are out there in the market? I only know of ComMarker Omni 1. So ComMarker Omni 1 is one option, right? You have a brand and then you have a source. Well, I should say you have a manufacturer of the whole laser and then you have a manufacturer of the source. The source is functionally like the engine, right? And then like, think of it like, I don't know, Craftsman, right? Craftsman makes their own mowers, and they also make engines for their mowers, but they will also use other motors like Briggs and Stratton or something else in their mowers. It doesn't yeah. So you have basically the final assembly, and then you have the companies that make the individual parts. So you have that. So JPT makes UV sources. Inngu, ComMarker has their own. I don't know if they work. They probably work with another company to make them, because it realistically wouldn't make sense for them to make a production line for that unless they were getting into source manufacturing. So they probably outsourced that, and they probably co-developed it.
GP Tech has one.
Yeah,
I think Coherent makes one.
maybe. There's another brand that starts with a G that, for the life of me, I can't remember, and I've been trying to think of it since we were talking the other night, and I can't. There's probably a half dozen UV manufacturers, I could comfortably say. But that said, your typical laser vendor is typically more than happy to assemble what you want. So if you go to Mactron, if you go to Bing Yan Laser, if you go to Haoshin, if you go to ComMarker, generally speaking, ComMarker just sells off the shelf stuff. I don't think they do custom orders, but the rest of the ones I listed, we've definitely tested fairly thoroughly through us and the community, and they make pretty good lasers, or at least they assemble them with quality. They test them. They're not, rat's nests on the inside. And they're thoroughly tested before they ship them to people.
I like the PC analogy, right? It's like,
Yeah,
Intel and AMD make processors, but they don't build computers. They sell the processors to Dell and Asus and Acer, right? And they build the computers with the processor. So just because you have like an Intel processor doesn't mean that your machine is an Intel like made machine. It's usually made by some other manufacturer that's building those from like a spec list and then selling you the final product.
Yeah, that's pretty solid right there.
Yuri says, Kyle, you're thinking of Gain Laser. Does that sound right? Gain?
Yes, thank you so much. That was literally eating me inside. And Rogue says ComMarker is the overpriced option. Bing Yan, Haoshin also sell them. Yeah,
ComMarker is like shopping at 7-Eleven. You pay for the convenience, right? It's like the little portable, powerful.
It's honestly not even that much. Their Omni One, I think I was looking at it last week, was like $39.99 with a rotary or something like that. So it's really not that bad. That's actually still below market average.
Yeah.
If you're going with like a premium built, like premium brand option, or you're getting anything custom, for a 5-watt, you're still paying over $6 typically.
Yeah.
It just so happens that in the last year and a half, 2 years, UV manufacturing has ramped up, which gives us the ability to buy them at a lower price because they're able to make them more efficiently because they're selling more. So as a community, us being interested in them has lowered the price of the parts. Right. But it doesn't mean that the prices have dropped everywhere. So I would say 5-watt at around the $4,000 mark is still a pretty decent price. That's like 3 or 4 years ago, a 60-watt fiber was, you probably couldn't get one for less than $7,000 or $8,000, unless you really bought one that wasn't tested and was a complete rat's nest and probably a used source. But
there's some final cut marks.
Yeah, that's nice. That's super clean.
They're super clean, dude. It does a really, really good job cutting wood. I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah.
There's some on that piece too.
So I wouldn't say they're overpriced. They're probably in the same ballpark as pretty much the other options that you were talking about. Andrew loves his Bing Yan one. I believe Andrew has a 10 watt. Yep. So Andrew, you could work with us on testing conversions too. That would be awesome.
Oh, I like my little Bing Yan laser. I need to use it more.
Keith is asking, are high-powered UV lasers good for stainless steel shim stock for clean cutting? No. UV lasers are actually used for wafer cutting, and I don't mean wafer like the cookie. I mean wafer like processor wafers. But those are rather high-powered UVs.
They're extremely high-powered UVs.
Yeah, that's like what we're paying for a laser multiplied by 100 is typically what those go for. And they're very, very much purpose-built. And the reason why is because the kerf is so freaking small. It costs so much money to have a wafer made of all these processors. It is a fraction of what it would cost to make them on a bigger scale or a bigger output, to just buy the UV laser that can get the smallest cut on it. And yeah, you want a fiber laser if you're going to be cutting stainless steel. And if you're
preferably one on a gantry.
Yeah, so galvo lasers are inherently problematic with cutting because they're always going to have a flared edge. Because if you think about like a movie projector. You're projecting a laser beam to cut something, and that means you're always going to have a tapered edge. So you're never going to have a truly flat edge when you're cutting with a galvo, and the thicker the material, the worse that's going to be. And also, your focal distance also plays a part in that as well, because the closer the lens is, the more aggressive your angle is going to be. So, I mean, if you're going to be cutting it for something with precision and you want minimal cleanup, you want a gantry cutter. If you're just cutting stuff for shims for something, maybe a galvo would be great, especially if it's like paper thin material. But yeah, I
guess it really depends on how thick you're trying to cut. But I think anything over, especially for steel, anything over like thousandths is going to be a really painful process.
It's just slow too.
Output,
it's not ideal, and it takes a lot of cleanup if you try and rush it, which sucks.
You know what wasn't slow? This cork setting Rhiannon found. Look at this.
That's pretty.
It's so even.
I appreciate the fine lines too, because
it got great fine lines.
Yeah.
Bamboo one's not bad either.
The bamboo one's not bad, but I fucking don't want to show that. This is embarrassing.
Well, we stopped it halfway
The setting is good, but I think the second pass really would have helped finish the whole thing.
Yeah, and we didn't finish that.
And we didn't finish it. Yeah, but
it's a slow setting. But it's better than what I did with the X tool.
One of the cool things about this setting is that once you really start to lay this setting in, it really evens out across all the different strips of bamboo.
Yeah, it got pretty deep.
Yeah.
Bamboo's going to be on my my future upgrade list to the library, because
we noticed you didn't have it. Why didn't you have it? You just don't have any?
I have some. It wasn't on the top of my mind, and it also wasn't in the pile of stuff I tested for whatever reason. So it's going to happen because I have a couple things that need to get done, and I'd really like to use the UV for it.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the nice thing about the UV with bamboo is, and you guys watching the show have probably heard us talk about bamboo being a pain in the butt with CO2, and we'd really prefer diode because for whatever reason, you just get a way more even result, and it's just more consistent. UV kind of gets the same result but nicer than a diode, because it has such a much smaller dot size. You can get like crazy detail, and sometimes it gets washed out depending on the orientation of the fibers in the bamboo. Like if you're looking at like edge grain, it's kind of crap always. It doesn't matter what you're engraving with, especially with fine detail, because if whatever you're engraving doesn't overlap enough of the ends of the fibers, it just kind of washes out. But yeah, UV can kind of do what the diode does on bamboo, just more better.
No better.
Where'd they're over there. I wanted to show you, Kyle, because I feel like we've talked about this like the last 3 weeks on the podcast, but I haven't been here to actually show you.
Let's do it. Show me.
The cutting board.
Huh.
Yeah, those are all different chunks of bamboo.
Yeah, this is one of the things we got from JPPlus.
Is that like, it looks like they made it like an end grain board.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But bamboo.
Okay, then.
Which is why I was saying, like, if we can get a good bamboo setting on this, I feel like we can get a good bamboo setting on anything.
You have the 175 lens in right now, right? So you can get like a solid
220. Yeah.
220?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you can get like a solid, what is that, 8.5, almost 9 inches?
Yep. And I said earlier on, guys, and I stand by this, lens size does not matter even nearly as much as it does with other lasers. But the entire Inngu library was based off of a 220, and the JPT was on a 150. Is that right? Yeah. So they're close again in range there as far as the bigger picture goes, but there are some minor differences. And again, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in the long term.
Typically, if anything, you would just have to slow a setting down a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that, and it would be marginal.
Yeah. So.
You got another question here. Alkvist. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I apologize if I'm not. Who will be the first one to make a Gantry UV? I have a customer with a material that cuts beautifully on my 5 watt. Will cut the 100 watt CO2, or will cut in the 100 watt CO2, but only up to 4 millimeter. UV cuts 7 millimeter like nothing. You can probably already get it. It's just going to cost you an arm and a leg. And I say that with partial confidence because I know there are gantry mounted galvo fibers that are available. The problem with them is they take a lot more to set up, and they're very expensive to ship because they're big and heavy. And because of the exponentially higher time in putting them together and getting them to work right, they are inherently more expensive, and there's not much you can do about that right now. And they're also, because they're kind of a niche, they're not really needed very frequently. Your power on purchasing it at a lower price anytime in the near future isn't going to be very likely.
Also, I can't help but think about just like how incredibly dangerous that would be.
Yeah.
It's a UV laser, but now it moves.
Yeah. So anyways, you can get that type of laser where it's a galvo mounted to a gantry. And basically what it does is it marks off a square area. And when it completes that segment, it moves on to the next slice. And basically you're puzzle piecing a big thing together.
It's so much harder than it sounds.
Yeah, there's a lot to those. So it would be probably infinitely cheaper for you to get like 150 watt CO2 with like an assist gas and like a 4-inch lens. And you would probably have a far easier time. I would guess. I don't know what you're trying to cut, but if it cuts with the 100 watt and you can do 4mm, you'll probably have an easier time getting a 4-inch lens, so you have a longer focal range and add more power. And I mean, 150 watt replacement tube is like 3 times the cost of a 100 watt replacement tube. So like there's a downside to that, but it's still going to be cheaper by probably an order of magnitude.
Yeah, if you're thinking about like a real gantry UV laser that would use like either a top mounted system like the gantry cutter fiber lasers or like a reflective system like the CO2s, I just don't, I can't even name any. I don't think I can name one off the top of my head. And if it is out there, it's $100,000 or more.
It's like super custom because
I like your suggestion on the heavier CO2 setup, though. If you're looking for something like that, a company that does really good work in that specific area is Light Object. Not sponsored, but I do want to just shout them out. They make those 150, 200, 300 watt gas assist CO2 systems that do work. They work very well, and they're extremely impressive. And they're fairly priced. Obviously, we're not talking about desktop fiber laser prices, right? So they're
you're talking about
more expensive than that. But yeah, they're definitely capable, and those guys know what they're talking about. So if you are looking for a complete system, that might be a place to start your search.
They don't really do UV at all, do they? Or really Galvo?
Don't want to say no. I feel like, I mean, they don't really do Galvo at all, but
I feel like they know what they're talking about. I just don't know if they really do it as a business. They might ask.
Let's see. Laser machines
might not be their specialty.
The other option.
Oh. Hold up. They do make a UV laser, but it is very expensive.
Okay.
All right, never mind. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you wanted to try and get like a top mount UV that doesn't have a Galvo head, it has like a cutter head, because that's like a very non-standard thing, you would probably need a fairly confident company that's used to making custom stuff. I would say probably Wisely might be your next best bet if you wanted something like that. But again, it's going to be incredibly expensive because that's highly non-standard. And you're also probably going to be using something like SipeCut, which isn't Lightburn compatible. It probably never will be. It is like a totally different thing.
It is a very totally different thing. It is good, though. I do like SipeCut. But it's very different. You're going to be learning a new software suite.
It's like our DWorks had a baby with EasyCAD kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's the opposite direction of Lightburn. It's industrial. It works. It's not what most people want. But yeah, there you go.
Yep. Are we caught up?
No.
Oh.
Peter says, hi, I have a 20 watt MOPA fiber laser. Would it make sense to replace it with a UV laser since I want to engrave wood and glass as well? UV lasers are supposed to be able to handle metals too. You can surface mark metals, specifically like stainless or titanium or something that changes color when it accepts heat. But if you're trying to mark copper, good luck. You're going to probably damage your sealing and the laser before you mark the copper.
Brianna actually just pushed our metal samples towards me. I wanted to ask you, dude, with your metals, were
Yep.
you getting a lot of ablation? And by
No.
a lot, I mean not fiber a lot. I mean like a lot for a
Like
UV
any-
though.
No.
Really? Yeah.
It
All right.
was
So that's where we need to
entirely
like compare
surface
some more.
marking.
Because I am definitely
Yeah,
like
some of these.
feeling ablation on these, particularly the aluminum. The steel a little less so. Titanium definitely. Brass definitely.
Aluminum.
And I feel like we're almost struggling to get a non-ablating mark.
I mean that one, but it's a lot lighter.
That one's much lighter. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
that was kind of all of yours is literally just on the surface of the metals.
Yep.
That's we'll have to sit and
it's
talk
not-
about that some more.
It's not deep, but you can feel it.
Yeah, with all of mine, you can't feel them at all.
Interesting.
If
And you did
were
you did
blind,
aluminum.
for something,
do
you would feel
brass.
nothing.
You didn't do brass. Okay.
I
You
didn't
did do titanium.
I don't, You didn't have
not
as
recently,
many
and it's not in the
metals, right?
library because I didn't
Yeah.
save it.
Interesting. All right. We
I
have
think the
we
I
have
have this
titanium over here on the
Yeah.
Inngu team.
I have a small strip of titanium that I was using for a tester. I need to find it. And I think it might be at the new house, so that might have to wait.
Let me see if I can get this.
Yeah, the libraries are a work in progress still. We'll add more.
Yes, there will be updates.
Some of the titanium ones we were able to pull.
Here, let me make you bigger. But the long story short to your question, Peter, is it's not a replace thing. It is each laser has things it's good at and bad at. Fiber is exceptional at metals in general, right?
Yep.
Particularly if you're going for colors, if you're trying to engrave subsurface, UV is not generally amazing at getting below the surface of metal. So if you, and again, it's a general rule, but there are exceptions. But UVs don't generally mark into metal. You're not going to get an engrave. You're going to get a mark. It's kind of like a Sharpie versus a knife trying to mark on wood, right?
You're kind of asking, like, should you sell your corded drill and get an impact driver? And it's like, do you need an impact driver or do you need a corded drill?
I don't think most people know the difference, to be honest.
Okay, well,
I was like, that's
I
such
think
an
I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying.
okay, you're asking if you
people don't know
should
the
sell
difference.
your ratchet set and get a crescent wrench.
There you go. That's a good analogy. I would even go a step further in saying it's like selling your saw and getting a hand knife. They're just good at two very different things. But anyways,
It's like selling your car and getting a cat.
yeah. If I would say I would keep, if it was me and you had the space, right? Keep the fiber for your metal stuff. UV will do your glass and your wood awesome, and then you have both tools and you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Selling your car and getting a motorcycle. Is that better?
No. No, it's not better. It's not worse.
Well, like a car, I don't know. They both transport you places, but you're going to get a very different experience on a motorcycle.
Be like selling your child and getting sepsis. I don't like.
Oh god, too far.
No, never. Now are we caught up, Kyle? Hey, Resin's here. Hi, Resin.
Hey, Lars. The reason you're getting an LMC driver error in EasyCAD 2 is because your driver's not installed. If you installed Lightburn and you tried it, that's why. You can only run one software at a time, and each of them has their own drivers. So if you're using EasyCAD, you need to go into your device manager, swap the driver, which means right-clicking, uninstalling, and making sure you're hitting the optional checkbox to remove it, Because if you don't click that optional checkbox, which is by default not checked, you will not remove the driver, and you're going to continue to have the same problem. But yeah, that's why you're getting that. And if you switch back to Lightburn, you have to reinstall that driver as well if you're switching between the two.
Not that you should do that. You should just stay on Lightburn.
Just use Lightburn.
There's no reason to be on EasyCAD anymore. Lightburn is now a complete packaged solution that you literally, to the point where you have no need to return to EasyCAD. There's nothing you can't do on Lightburn now.
Speaking
and in Lightburn, there is no .core file. That is correct. You have to import it if you're using a core file, or you could just do it by running the lens calibration tool, the 9-point, from the laser tools drop down on the top.
Lars sounds like a man who needs the Lightburn for Galvo crash course.
Yeah.
You can find it on the YouTube channel on the homepage. If you go to playlists, find Lightburn for Galvo crash course. Start at the beginning, work your way through it. I think it will be a big eye opener for you.
I think it's like an 11-minute guide. That's a complete guide to doing a lens correction in Lightburn with never having to touch EasyCAD, and you also don't have to deal with core files, which means your calibration actually uses real numbers that you can input and change if you ever wanted to back them up or copy them and not worry about losing a core file.
I think it's episode 5 or 6, so it's pretty early on.
I was gonna say the UV library is only for Lightburn too.
Yeah, that's true. That's another good point. We don't currently have an output for EasyCAD for UV. That might change in the future, but it might also not change.
No guarantees.
But right now it is a CLB only, so there is no EasyCAD file for that. I wonder what the Shark software would do.
We can convert it, I think.
Yeah, to drop that out. So maybe we can get those relatively easy, but I don't know what the quality of the output's going to be. We'll have to look into it. But as of right now, yes, this is a good point, Rhiannon.
Yeah.
CLB only.
Yeah. Peter also says it does not have to be deep, only surface marking. On steel, it only has to be black as possible. The fiber is going to be significantly faster at giving you a black mark versus the fiber, because the fiber being a 20 watt, you would be spending like 35 grand on getting remotely close to that power output on a UV in terms of optical power.
For the heat generation.
The fiber will just give you a better black mark faster.
Yeah. Black mark's all about generating heat.
This is pretty decent on our little steel.
Yeah, it's not bad, but I feel like that one was also really slow. Right?
I don't really remember.
I feel like we're at like 10 speed for
Maybe.
Resin says, I can't wait to check out the UV library.
that. The UV library, can't wait to check out you.
Yeah.
And we're caught up.
Cool.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
You're almost caught up. Does the ComMarker rotary for fiber laser work on the ComMarker UV laser? I can't confirm, but I would guess it would. Because ComMarker has pretty much all off-the-shelf parts, I'm pretty sure they use two-phase for everything, but don't quote me on that. Everything I've seen has been a two-phase rotary driver with a standard 4-pin aviation connector, which means, in theory, it should.
You know, all 3 of my Mactron lasers are from the same product generation, and all 3 of them have 3 separate connectors, and one of them is 3-phase and 2 of them are 2-phase. So I wouldn't put it past them. I'm just saying you should definitely check with someone who has each of those machines before.
Yeah. Particularly for ComMarker, because everything is assembly line style, they make all the same product. They don't make one-off custom stuff typically.
Yep.
It's just what goes in the box. Are you getting this combo or this combo or this combo?
Mm-hmm.
Are you getting a rotary? Are you getting a chuck, a roller, or are you getting the basic kind of thing? So because of that, I would guess they would probably use the same stuff, but again, it could change. There are a lot of manufacturers that they use what's available when they're ordering in bulk, and sometimes that means they're getting a lot of 3-phase drivers and motors, and sometimes they're getting 2. And that's the difference typically between a 4-pin and a 3-pin is your phase. And then there's some manufacturers that throw in like weird 6-pin and 5-pin because whatever company makes the 3 and 4-pin ones didn't have them in stock or something. So sometimes it's just about, making stuff work, and it isn't about cross compatibility. And so you'll see that. And sometimes that means learning how to solder and change a connector.
Yeah. Which is not that bad.
No.
On aviation style connectors, there's a lot of room. It's a very easy solder.
Sometimes it's as long as you know what phase it is and you know which pins are being used on the connector, you can typically make an educated guess, and you have a 50-50 shot of being right.
Tracing that connector back to the stepper driver is probably the easiest trace that you could have to do in a laser machine too. So that's also very straightforward. If you get lost on any of this, Discord, Facebook group, Laser Master Academy, the links are all down in the description. Join the community, be a part of the community. People ask questions like this and get answers every single day. So if you're not already there, make sure that you go sign up for at least one of those.
And we are caught up.
Cool. I'll take a few minutes to just catch you up, Kyle.
Yeah.
The Laser Everything server is officially migrated off of Ionos. So we are independent of Ionos now. And we're also entirely shielded behind a VPS. Ooh. So that was like my big win. But the one thing that I have not gotten back up yet is the database. I have all of the dumps from all of our databases, but I'm rewriting Vinny's scripts for viewing them and kind of like navigating them, because Vinny's code, while very good, was very Vinny, and I can't read it well enough to make like adjustments to it. So certain things that aren't working properly, like categories not showing up for, millijoules on laser sources, or like the second paragraph of every review is missing on the buy-in guide. I can't fix those simple little things because I just don't know what he wrote well enough. So I'm doing a lot of rewrites. Yeah, I know, Cheryl, Vinny. Pour one out for Vinny, everybody. So I'm doing those rewrites right now to get those back up. The buying guide was the first one to return. That's actually up right now. You can find that over at makearmy.io if you're interested in taking a look at the buying guide. Rhiannon and I plan on adding a lot of stuff as far as blanks go.
Yeah.
I think, to it in the near future. So that'll be getting some updates soon. But our hard data, like the database stuff for laser sources, projects, things like that, it's just going to take a little more time to restore those. So if you've noticed that those have been missing, because I've seen a couple comments from you guys about it, I am working on getting those back online, and we should have them back and better than ever soon, including, Kyle, this is interesting to you, I think. So now anything in any of the libraries, whether it's the project database or the settings library or the buying guide or whatever, anything that references any particular material will now take you back to a full material database that includes things like safety warnings and like kind of an MSDS style readout with, like cautionary things like that. And it's all based on a really in-depth rating system with different types of hazards. So it doesn't just tell you that vinyl is dangerous. It tells you corrosion hazard, level 3. You know what I mean? So you can actually see exactly what hazards are associated with which products when processed with a laser. It's very, very cool. Back end, completely done, 100% done. And I think you're really going to like it in particular, because up until we had made the jump from Ionos, we were stuck on that kind of like that one material safety database had like 4 materials in it. This one is exhaustive. It's very, very, very good, and I think you're gonna like it. So
speaking of
I'm
hazardous
hyped.
materials,
why? What?
just that the UV library has a couple
Oh,
listed.
yeah, good. This is why
Yeah.
you're here. Yeah,
I
go ahead,
bring
Kyle.
it back.
So with the UV library,
Mhm.
and you guys will, if you download it and you import it, you're gonna see this, at least on mine. There is a danger warning on, for example, ABS. And a lot of you who are like 3D printers are going to say ABS is fine. It does particulate and stuff. We have exhaust. No. When you burn ABS with a laser, it emits. I think it was a hydrogen cyanide.
It's hydrogen cyanide. Yeah,
Which, if you didn't know, is really bad for you.
it's a nerve agent.
Yeah. Like it's the type of stuff that they use in chemical warfare. So you don't want to inhale that. And you also need to go through your due diligence in making sure that your exhaust is set up friggin' properly. That doesn't mean that you're exhausting out the same window that you're bringing air back into, or even on the same wall for that matter. You should have a clean air inlet from nowhere near your exhaust, and you need to replace the air that you're trying to exhaust so that you can effectively move that air. Because I don't want to hear about anybody going to the hospital because they half-assed something.
Which is stopping.
Yeah.
Look, we don't have a ton of time left today, but we did do an episode. The thumbnail is so hard to miss. It's a recent upload. I recently uploaded the edit. Rhiannon just finished it like a week ago. It says danger, not magic. And there's a picture of a UV laser. And the whole theme of that podcast episode was just because a UV laser can mark something safely that is usually dangerous to mark with other lasers does not mean it does so safely by default. You have to do it the right way. It's very, very important. Just the UV being a UV does not inherently make it safe. If anything, it's more dangerous because people feel like they have the power to like a false sense of security. Exactly. So if you're curious about more information on that particular topic, I highly encourage you go find that episode of the Laser Source podcast and listen to it next if you haven't already, because we do get very in depth. I yell a lot and move my arms around a lot. It's a good one, but it's a very important point, guys. Just because the UV is capable of marking a material safely, like PVC or ABS, does not mean at all that it does so by default. So just keep that in mind. You absolutely have to exercise the most extreme amount of caution. Yeah, I know we got Jeff Goldblum down here in the chat. You have to exercise the most extreme amount of caution, guys, when attempting to do any of this, especially when it comes to synthetics. It's just so invisibly dangerous in many ways. So just make sure that you keep that in mind going forward. Again, Kyle's marked anything, and I think you did a good mirror on our library too. Anything even remotely dangerous has like a hazard warning on it. And we do have the new hazardous materials database coming out soon that you guys will be able to pick through and explore. So all of that and more, guys, you have to look forward to. Remember, we're just about out of time now, but if you're not already and you want to get this library, it is available to our supporters, both on Patreon in the dedicated post for downloading parameter libraries, and on the LMA in the laser param download section of the main menu. They're available to $15 per month members and higher. And we really do appreciate that, especially now with everything going on in the world. It's a crazy world right now. People are broke and a little freaked out, and I am just so grateful that we get to continue coming into this shop every single day and doing this job because you guys continue to support us. And so that's why we made this a priority. We really wanted to get this project out. I know so many of you guys rely on the parameter libraries to do your jobs and to make your lives doable and easier. So we're really excited to be able to drop this today. How are you feeling, Kyle? You got any final thoughts before we zip out?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a couple lightning rounders, and a big thanks to Lars for being a member of the YouTube channel. Thanks for joining, buddy. We appreciate the support, and
thanks, Lars.
The timing on that couldn't have been better.
Of course.
Albert says, is it really necessary to have an air assist on a 5-watt UV laser? Not always. It depends on what you're doing, but it can help with heat management. If you're having trouble with that, some plastics have a weird tipping point with energy absorption. Sometimes the air can help keep the surface cool, so you get only a surface mark and you don't end up making a gummy mess. Material dependent. Ryan, what's your guys' best way to engrave glass on a UV and frame it, centering a design is difficult. There's a couple methods, and a shout out to Alex's OG method of seeing the red light on really, really mirror finish stuff, or polished stuff. A puff of baby powder or talc can be very useful for that. And I'm not saying coat the thing in an inch of talc powder, but like a little puff just so you can barely see it hitting where you need it to hit. Another method that I use a lot is just a white piece of printer paper or a piece of junk mail, whatever you have handy. But a white piece of paper will absorb that blue energy really nicely so you can see it framing.
Reflect.
Works fantastically. Even a yellow Post-it note actually works really well.
I'm team printer paper all day.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah,
quick. That's the quick way.
Yeah, it's a lot faster, and also it gives you a nice sharp edge where you don't really get that with powder. Where if you're trying to make sure something's lining up, it's just functions as a really nice reference point. Your other option is to install a beam combiner and get a red dot installed, which I did, and can be a little bit annoying to get tuned. But it works.
I didn't, and fuck that.
I still sometimes use printer paper though, just because of, again, the reference from a clean straight line.
I saw Andrew's asking, is this also available to classic members? I don't know. I feel like it should be.
I think it should be as well.
I think it is.
It should be.
But if it's not,
we'll make it happen.
It should be. So
if you have trouble accessing it as a classic OG member,
shout out to you for being a classic OG member. Those memberships are so old now. Jesus.
Yeah, what is that going on? We launched the LMA in 2022, right? Or mid 2021 or something.
22, yeah. So I think the first Patreon was 21. LMA was 22. Yeah.
Something like that.
Good shit.
Shout out to Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
And all the other OG members.
All right, cool. You chill?
Yeah.
Oh, really quick before we go, Tennessee wants to know where I can find info about the beam combiner. Boom.
You need a combiner lens that's compatible with a UV and a red dot, so it doesn't absorb the wrong wavelength and crack or burn or damage something. I ordered mine through Pascal from Haoshin because he was the source of the laser and also happened to have them in stock. You can probably find it on Wavetop Sign.
I was gonna say that. I'm so glad you said that. They fucking everything.
The problem being that you need to make sure, absolutely certain, that the combiner lens you're using is going to reflect the red light and not absorb the OV wavelength or UV wavelength.
Which is hard because everything does. So it's really
they're also
specific
very close
part.
Together.
You're getting a very specific thing.
Yeah, a red dot versus the UV wavelength are within like 150 nanometers of each other in wavelength.
Yeah.
So they have not been on the market for very long. It's been like a year and a half, I think. And just make sure, because if you
Yeah.
order like a fiber one, you're probably going to ruin it.
You're just going to mark it immediately. It's just going
Yeah.
to mark. There's a reason we don't pass UV lasers through fiber optic cables. It's because you would mark it immediately. You would destroy it with the UV. So you have to get the right one.
Yeah. So assuming that point, if you don't see it on their storefront, you could probably message them and they can probably just swap the lenses for you if they have it in stock and don't have it listed.
I'm sure Wavetop has it. They must. They have everything.
So there's at least two options for you. And in the case of mine, the beam combiner was basically a aluminum block that mounted between the head and the source on the neck. And it basically bolted in like a spacer, and then the beam combining element slid up and bolted in from the bottom. And then you have to do a red light offset tuning. So basically you have to mark like a square on something in focus, and then you have to adjust the red dot so when you're framing, it's framing where you marked, because it inevitably will be offset from where it should be.
We have videos about that.
Yes, we do. You can tune them to be closer together with little offset set screws. In my case, I could not get it to line up. I got it as close as I could and had to move it the rest of the 5 or 8 millimeters in software. So there you go.
We're so bad at ending this show. Thank you guys for coming out today. We really appreciate it. Back to our regular schedule next week. So we'll see you Tuesday at 9:00 p.m. EST right here on Laser Everything. If you got value out of this one, guys, don't forget to smash the like button. Let everybody else know the content is good. And don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get notified the next time we go live. Remember, you can find the libraries we were talking about tonight at patreon.com or at masters.lasereverything.net. That's where I recommend you go if you need support. A lot of people have been signing up for the Patreon being like, where is everybody? And I'm like, this is just for people that want to support via PayPal. So I've been making a lot of recommendations that people ditch their PayPal subs and go over to the LMA if they're okay with paying with a card, because it really does offer that full service kind of support.
You get access
atmosphere.
to forums and chats, and
it's so much better.
Troubleshooting and helping people.
Yeah, so that's really where you want to be. And again, guys, it helps support the channel. It allows us to continue to come back and do this week after week and publish all our new episodes and spend all our time on our computers giving that support that everybody here puts so much time into doing this because they love it. And so I'm grateful for all of you guys. I'm grateful for the staff. I'm grateful for everybody who's volunteered. And I hope you enjoy the UV library.
And thanks to Johnson Plastics.
Thanks to Johnson Plastics Plus.
Hit the link in the description and show them some love for helping support us.
Smash all the links. All right. That was my little Matt for the day. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we will see you in the next one. Do the pews. Somebody do pews for Matt.
Pew.